Man, so I had to call this session, so I figured that I would just go live while I'm doing it, because why not? So I have not went live in a minute. I haven't went live since January this year. I barely remember how to go live. Barely remember. Now, I don't think there's anybody in here yet, but I'll have to see if this what this music is like, because I've never used this. I've never used this music feature, so I don't know if it how it sounds in comparison to my audio. I actually don't even know if I have audio, but maybe if somebody tap in. What's up, Josh? Can you hear me? Number one, and number two, is my vocal audio cool? Should I turn down the music? I mean, I can hear the music on my end, but I can't hear myself, so I don't know if it's a good vibe. But yeah, I am just gonna call through this session that I did. So the last YouTube video that I dropped, turn the music down a smidge. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. We'll put it at about 20. So it was at 30. We'll take it down to 20. So it should be 10%. How's that sound? So yeah, my last YouTube video where I was talking about how I messed myself up, this is the session from that. So yeah, I basically just go through and call through. I'm normally pretty quick, but it'll probably be a little bit slower, just because I'm gonna be trying to look at the chat as well. So when I call, and obviously I still manually call, I know they have all the all like the AI stuff and all that, but the problem with a lot of those is I feel like they're more so designed for like wedding photographers, because like imaging or Imagine AI, for example, I actually talked to the people that created that when I was at Imaging last year, and it sounds like a great program. I actually know people that use it. But like for it to really be effective, you have to upload like 2,000 or 3,000 images, something like that, for it to like learn your editing style and how you call and all of that. Well, the problem is, like as a portrait photographer, it would take me a while to get to that number of images. And then not only that, but then the editing style would need to be the same, which as a portrait photographer, like you tend to, depends on the session. So the editing could be different. The way I call images could be different. So I got to tap into it a little bit more to see if how well it really works for like portrait photographers. But So everything that I have in this catalog is double because I shoot RAW and JPEG. So when I cull, I go through them both, because if I get rid of one in the RAW, I want to get rid of it in JPEG as well. There's very basic work to each photo, and you still have to manually edit each photo. Interesting. Have you tried the culling feature of it? Because I think they just added that not too long ago. I think. I don't really mind culling though, because I normally don't take a ton of pictures, and I can go through them pretty quick. Now I took more in this session than I normally do. See, like I look for things where it's just like, here's where it's tough too, because like sometimes your images straight out of camera, like they may not be anything special, but you could revive them in editing. But when I call through, I don't even give them the opportunity, because I'm just not going to keep stuff that I don't think I'm going to use. So like this one, for example, I don't love how high her chin is. I probably will keep that one though. But see, like this one, for example, like it's an awkward pose. Her expression is awkward, the pose is, so I mean, like I wouldn't keep that, because I'm not gonna do anything with that. Man, I think she's looking off. Yeah. Did that zoom when I zoom? No, okay, so it doesn't zoom. Okay. Haven't tried the culling in any AI perm, don't trust it. AI can understand artistic and often misses. Yeah, that's definitely something that I've thought about as well, where it's just like how would it know what because like sometimes like I don't keep stuff that it probably would keep, because I look at facial expression. I look at is the chin too high? Like in this one here, like she's kind of looking off to the right. I don't like that, so I'm not gonna keep it. Technically the image itself is sharp, but like I'm not gonna do anything with that. So it would probably keep those where I'm not gonna keep them. Yeah, see, so like this one, like the chin's too high, it's just an awkward pose. I'm not gonna do anything with that, so there's no point in keeping it. I don't mind looking off. I don't love how far the eyes are pushed over this way, but I'll keep it for now. Sometimes I do a couple rounds. I normally just kind of go through, and I don't spend a ton of time looking. Definitely moving. What up, D-Ro? Definitely moving a little bit slower now, because I'm trying to talk at the same time. And my multitasking skills when it comes to talking and actually doing stuff is terrible. Terrible. So this was it was a beauty dish, camera left. That was it. So the beauty dish was literally like right here, right out of frame. And you could tell that I had it a little bit too low, because you could see how hot the chest is. Now I would handle this in post, right? So I'll just do it real quick. So if I was editing this, I would take an adjustment brush and highlight the chest and then bring down the highlights, that's too much, but just to even that out. So I would either mess with either the highlights, the whites, or the exposure. I would actually do a combination of all of it, maybe even adjust the exposure. Sometimes you got to come in here and add a little bit of warmth. You got to add a little bit of red tint. I would make it look good, but in post I would fix that, because otherwise your eyes will go there. And if that's not the intent, I mean, you can see how bright that is compared to her face. Like this is the brightest part on the scene. So if I was to edit that photo, I would definitely fix that. But it was a result of just having the beauty dish down too low, which it happens. not tripping. Back to the library. All right. So the difference when I switch, the difference in exposure, the JPEGs are darker, which that normally doesn't happen. I really haven't, like, obviously it's always different. Your JPEG is going to be different than your raw file, but it usually isn't that much of an exposure difference. So I'm not exactly sure what settings it applied to really change the exposure as much as it did. It normally is not that much of a difference, but it really crushed the highlights. You have any? No, I do not. I do not have any V flats. Number one, because I'm not going to buy the actual V flats, because I'm not spending $200 and something for some pieces of cardboard, and I have not had any desire to make any. Because, man, to be honest, I really don't. I've never, like, I don't routinely be like, man, I need a V flat. I mean, I just would use either a poster board and hang it with a clamp, or I would just use like a 5-in-1 reflector, the white side. So I haven't really found the need to need a V flat. Then I got to store it somewhere, and I don't be liking just having stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, sometimes when I'm not sure, I'll just keep it, because this is basically just the call through to be able to send the proof gallery to the model for her to make her select. So now I'll pare it down again before I send them, because a lot of times, like, there's a lot of stuff that it's all the same. So I'm not going to send. I mean, I think I took 517 pictures. So I mean, I'm not going to send 500 for the model to select. I'll pare it down to like 80, and I'll basically just only send in the proof gallery ones that I'm okay being posted. So no matter what she picks, I'm okay with it. So I definitely was going for more of a moody look with these. So, I'm okay with there being a little darker. And of course, there's no catch light in the eye, which I'm okay with. I am not the type of photographer where I'm like, oh, you always got to have a catch light in the eye. I don't. Like, if I want one there, I'll make sure there's one there. But SJ, you send them all now. I don't do that, because I mean, I usually don't take that many pictures, but it just makes it harder. It makes it harder for them to pick when there's so many that are the same. So I just try to spare them having to do that. So usually when I'm on location, I have to check focus as well. Just because, even with mirrorless cameras, like if you shoot in a very shallow depth of field, like the subject just moving forward or backwards just an inch or two can make it soft. But since I was in studio, she wasn't moving, and she was still sitting down for these. So they're pretty much all in focus. So usually when I'm doing these, I have 2 screens, and so I have I have it this size on the main screen, and then I have it zoomed in like this on my secondary screen, so as I'm going through, I can check focus along the way. But I know these are pretty much, for the most part, all going to be in focus. What's up, Sebastian? So I was definitely playing around with the shoulder position. So if some of these, if it seems high for you where I'm getting rid of the neck, I was intentionally going for that just to kind of see how it looks. Because, sometimes that works. It's kind of like a playful what's the word I'm looking for? Sometimes it works. So I definitely was encouraging her to adjust that shoulder position. So that's why on some of these the shoulder is up the way that it is, because that was kind of what I was going for. Now the problem is that you definitely could run into is that the shoulder, because it's the closest to the camera, it looks big. So this would be a case where I would more than likely use a linear filter and bring down the exposure all right here, so that way it's kind of here, because this is going to draw your eye. Not only is it taking up half the frame, but then you got the hot spot right there. So yeah, if I was editing it, I would kind of do something along these lines and just bring the exposure down a little bit. I would probably Photoshop that out, but yeah, I would kind of play around with that just to make it to where it's not as bright. But we keep going. Yeah, see, I don't like that one though, so that one goes. Now, I don't know if y'all watched my last video, but the problem with this whole session was how I had to look. I got a video dropping on Tuesday of the actual BTS of this shoot. So at some point in there, I'll show what I had to do to take these and how I had to be looking to the left. So like some of these, the composition is just not good, because I didn't realize how awkward it would be looking to the left and then, you know, trying to frame something in front of you. Like it was tough. So especially when I flip these, when I go into landscape orientation, and my compositions, they were just terrible. Yeah, they were terrible. But that's just the way it go. Yeah, on stuff like this, like I always look at like what would I do with this image, and it's like, you know, I try not to over delete stuff, because like I said, sometimes you can kind of get creative in your edit, but there's times where I'm just like, man, what would I do with it? But I'll keep it for now though. But I mean, as you can see, like this is why I pare this down before I send it to the model, because I mean, if you look at these, I mean, it's a lot of images that are all the same. So I'm just going to pick the one that I would want to post out of those versus sending them all. And then if she picks one that I wouldn't necessarily want to post, now I'm editing a picture that I can't do nothing with. Because like when I post stuff, I just post something from what I already edited for the model, because I don't like having to work twice. I don't want to edit something on top of what they already picked. So if I only give them options of what I would pick anyway to edit, then I'll just pick something from what they picked to post, just to save me time. So like when you have all these that are all the same, I'm going to pare those down, so that way it's just easier for her to pick. Now, I don't mind eyes closed, but I don't like when it's not fully closed, which I mean, that would be a quick edit in Photoshop to fix that. So yeah, I'll keep it for now. I'm not going to keep that one because I don't like the eyes, and there's so many other ones. So these are still, so all of these were still the beauty dish. I just moved it over to the right side on these, obviously. So now on these images, I went to having a strip box, but it was the glow arc strip box. Was there any diffusion? Yes, there was diffusion on the dish. Now I actually planned on not using diffusion on it, but it was already, the sock was already on it, so I just left it because I was rushing, so I just left it. My intent actually was to not have a sock on it, but since it was already on it and I was pressed for time. I just left it, and I was okay with the look of it. I was just gonna go without the sock just to kind of have more of a punchier light, but I was fine with how it looks. So I rolled with it. So yeah, on these, yeah, I know SJ. I love that thing. So yeah, I was using the arc strip, which is basically a curved strip. And the only problem with the curved strip, well, it's actually a problem with all strips, but I was using the 8200 with the Fresnel head. So the problem when you use a strip with the Fresnel head is that the top and the bottom are significantly less light output than the center, obviously. So to mitigate that, which I actually have a video on my YouTube channel, to mitigate that, you can either use a bare bulb, or if you are using a speed light or a Fresnel head, you can use like one of those Gary Fong domes, which is normally what I do, because that basically evens out the exposure. It's you maybe have like at most 2/3 of a stop difference, but this arc, there was like a good 4 stop difference between the center and the top and the bottom, because I was just using the Fresnel head. Even with the dish, the plate bouncing the light back in, it still just doesn't make it there. So yeah, definitely the center is top, but I tried to center it on kind of like on her face, just because I knew that was going to be a problem, and again, I just didn't have time to fix it. So these, she actually kind of struggled with what I was wanting her to do, and it was a physical limitation. So I actually wanted her to be completely facing the background and then turn her head all the way to the left to get this profile. So her head is exactly how I wanted it to be, but I actually wanted her shoulder to be, you know, parallel to the backdrop, but she couldn't face that way and then like turn her head all the way, which when I tried it myself, I did realize like it is a little challenging. It definitely isn't comfortable. So because it wasn't comfortable, I had to have her rotate her shoulder to her left a little bit, which it still works. But if she would have been facing the backdrop all the way, it would have been more just like a little strip of light on the side here versus this right here. Now I actually don't mind this, but it wasn't what I was initially going for. But that's just the way it go. You got to make those adjustments. And then she kind of, as we kept shooting, she was rotating that shoulder to the left even more, to the point where she was kind of facing the light, which is not what I wanted. But you know, that's just the way it go. Like if it's not a model that's like down to be like, okay, I'm gonna be uncomfortable to get whatever shot you want, you just gotta go with what they can do. So I just roll with it. She also and it kind of started happening here, she was struggling to keep the face to the side. So I initially told her to keep her eyes. There was a little map thing on my wall over here. So I initially said, keep your eyes on the map. And so that worked initially. She was doing that at first, but then she started to shift. And what she was doing was her nose was pointing this way, but her eyes, she was still looking at the map. So I then said, called an audible, and I said, okay, make sure your nose is facing the map. So she understood what I was trying to do. Because like this here, for this to really work, you need a full-on slide profile. Like you need this. It doesn't really work with this because you just don't have a lot. This is obviously the brightest spot, so this just doesn't work. So like these I won't keep, because what am I going to do with it? It's just not, it's not what I was going for, so we won't keep. And then on these, I know, what's the gym routine? Right now I'm doing something called German volume training. Google it, and I'm following exactly what you'll find on it, because that's how I pretty much crafted the routine. I didn't know anything about it until I started doing it a month ago. So on these, none of these work the way I want. So what I was trying to have her do was to frame her face, but she wasn't, like, I needed this to be full on profile. So I needed her face to be like this. And so I was trying to have her face in here, and then the light would have hit her face it would have still hit this, but I would have just reduced this in post. But she couldn't. Physically, it just wasn't comfortable for her to face this way and bring her head around. So I was a little disappointed that I couldn't get this shot, but I mean that's just the way it goes. That's just the way it goes sometimes. So it is what it is. So Josh, it could have worked. She would have just, so the way that I would have made it work if she could have got her head around, and the way that you could make it work with one light is if she would have had her head all the way around, naturally, of course, the arm would have been in the way, so it would have blocked the light, right? So the way that you fix that is you just push the arms forward a little bit. Now, if you were looking at it in person, it would look kind of weird because the arms would be like out in front. But in the picture, it would look completely fine. And so if she could have had her head around, and then if she would have pushed these forward, the arm would have, first of all, not been blocking the light to hit the face. They also would have went in shadow, or at least they would have been more to the feathered part of the modifier. So there wouldn't have been as much light, and then the light would have been able to hit her face. So it definitely is possible. It's just you have to finesse the pose exactly right to be able to make it work. And because it wasn't working for her and I didn't have a whole lot of time, I abandoned it quick. Like I realized like I don't have time to make this work. Yeah, so I moved on. Yeah, not keeping that one. So I don't like this one because this is 2/3 of the frame, and how big this looks. Because again, this is going to be the closest thing to the camera because she's got her head going more to the right versus perpendicular to the wall she's looking at. So it just makes the arm look huge, makes the face look small. So there's no need to keep that. Sometimes when I look at these two, I also look at cropping. Like I don't have to keep it. I mean, I normally crop all my portraits to a 4:5 anyway. I don't particularly like the 2:3 crop for portraits, so I normally 4:5 crop, and that's outside of Instagram. I just prefer the 4:5 crop. But yeah, I'll keep that one. Not that one though. I'll keep that one. That one's good. It's just that one song, mid. I downloaded that just because it was December, so I was like, I'll use that in the video at some point. And I just threw these songs together real quick just to have some background music to test it out to see what it was like. Yeah, I'll rock with that one. I'll rock with that one. That one's fine. Fine. Not that one. So you can see she's obviously got the shoulder up and she's pulling her chin back. So I mean, this is just way too blocky. Yeah, it just doesn't work. I mean, yeah, I guess you could make it work if you wanted to, but there's too many other ones. Now, see, this one I would likely keep because what I would do is I would crop this. So we would kind of bring this in to be something more like this. So that way you kind of have that shoulder there. I would do something like that. So I'll keep this one. Yeah, usually when I go through these, I'm literally thinking about that like in a split second. Like I give it like a second or two to figure out if I want to keep it. I normally err on the side of just getting rid of it because if it doesn't look like something I could work with right away, I usually just get rid of it and don't think too much of it. And I usually have that one looks soft. I usually have these backed up on another drive as well, the raw files before I go through. So if I delete and then I'm like, I don't know, maybe I deleted something I didn't want to, I could always go back and pull them out if I wanted to, but I never do that. So here I was going for a shot that didn't end up working as well. So the strip is still on the same side. And what I was trying to do was to have her back to the light, so I would illuminate the back, because the back, like this part, what you see here is the only skin that was visible in this whole outfit. So the idea was I wanted to light this, and then I also wanted to get a touch of light on the face, but she couldn't really get the face out far enough. The hair was kind of in the way, so I don't think any of these worked, and I actually ended up just moving the light to the right side eventually, because like this kind of illustrates. Yeah, I have done that, Josh. You still run into these problems though, because you know when you use those programs, it's like, yeah, it's all good until you actually get a model in, and then it's kind of a different ball game. So it kind of was working here, but it didn't end up working. So I just bailed on it. I mean, this is definitely overexposed, but if I so the Elixir one, the Set Alight 3D, is pretty daggone accurate. I can't remember how much it costs. It's not free, but it's pretty daggone accurate though. Yeah, I'll keep that. So this is kind of what I was getting. I mean, this one wasn't bad, but she also didn't have her back straight to the light the way that I was wanting her to. So it's like, you know, then, you know, the hair up here was in the way. So yeah, I'm not gonna keep any of them, because it wasn't what I wanted, and I would just be having to make it work. And then yeah, here, I mean, we've just got no light on the face at all. So all those go. Now the reason why there's so many of these, you're just like, this light is terrible, it's not even on her face, why are there so many? Because I was just snapping pictures, right? So when I do these shoots, to not break up the flow, sometimes I will just shoot through a pose that is not working, just so that way the model thinks that it's fine, and then I just adjust. Because like, if you take a picture and you're just like, nah, that's not working. You take a picture, nah, that's not working. They get self-conscious, and then it messes up the whole flow. So I'll just shoot through a pose that's not working, or if the light's not good, I'll just shoot through it, just because it makes them confident. Now, granted, I did have a screen. She could see these, but you know, she didn't know what I was going for. So I just shoot through. So that's why there's so many, because I was just popping, you know, just to kind of see, maybe I would get a random one that worked okay. Like this one's not bad, but I'm not gonna keep any of them, no, because it's just not, at this point, like I didn't even care about how she was doing her arms or anything, because I knew I wasn't gonna keep it, because the light just wasn't hitting the way I wanted it to. So although, let's see, if I were to black and white that, open up the shadows a little bit, yeah, nah, I don't think that really works. Yeah, nah, I don't like it. So yeah, unfortunately, all those are gonna go, because there's just not a whole lot I could do with it. So it's like, what's the point in keeping it? I wouldn't want to post them. So, and I mean, the thing is, the model is not gonna remember what she did. So I could get rid of a whole set, and it would be very unlikely that the model would be like, hey, what about those ones where I did this? I mean, if it's a pose that they specifically wanted to do, they might, but outside of that, like they're not gonna remember. So she's not going to be like, where was those poses where my back was to the light? As you can see, none of these really work. It's like, technically, yeah, I could bring up a little bit here and bring this down, but I mean, this is in such deep shadow that I would not be able to organically get this to be as bright as I would want it to be. Like, the face should be this bright, the arm should be this dark. To swap these, I could bring this down and I could make it look organic. It would be tough to do that with this deep of a shadow. So I just have to count my losses on that one. What up, Stan the man? All right, so then at that point, I brought the modifier around. Now the problem was I really wasn't planning to shoot this way, so I moved it around real quick to try to salvage the light that I had set up, but yeah, it just wasn't. It wasn't really what I wanted. So it's not bad, but it's a little flatter than what I would like. It's a little flatter than what I would like, but definitely not bad though. I imagine the catch light's probably pretty decent though. Yeah. Throw them all in the video clip and move on. What do you mean by that? Yeah, I usually it usually don't take me too long because I'm not talking and stopping. So I generally don't take that many pictures. I really don't take that many. I took a lot more on this shoot than I normally take. I typically don't take a lot of pictures because I kind of just get what I'm looking to get and then I move on. So this session, man, I was just all sorts of thrown off though, because I was just trying to do too much. So I ain't even gonna lie. This shoot, it almost was like a Hail Mary. Like I was just taking stuff just to be like, let's see what I can get, which is normally not the way that I shoot. But I was just so thrown off on just the short amount of time, just trying to squeeze so much in. So on these, I was definitely having her move through this. So I was just kind of snapping as she was moving. And you can see, I mean, the light is a little underexposed. And I don't think I changed the flash settings. And I'm pretty sure that I had the light further from the model on the right side than I did on the left. Because on the left, I had it kind of just out of frame because I wanted a quick fall off because that was what I was going for. Like, yeah, but it didn't really work. So now I just moved it to the right, didn't adjust the flash power, so it's definitely a little under. And you can see where it's a little hotter right there because I'm sure that's where the center of it was. But it is what it is. Now, if you watched the video where I was talking about how I messed this shoot up, this was the sequence where I was talking about where she didn't look at the camera at all, and I didn't even realize it because I was moving so fast and I was looking at the screen. I didn't even realize it. So some of these shots I actually would have been okay with. I don't particularly love any of them because she's not looking at the camera in any of them. Now, I don't need the model to always be looking at the camera. I definitely don't. Like, I will have a model look off all the time, but there's not a single I don't think there's a single shot where she's looking at the camera. There might be some towards the end, I can't remember, but I don't think there's any where she's looking at the camera. So I didn't like the light, and then she doesn't look at it at the camera, so it's kind of like, yeah, these are kind of a wash as well. So this is what you get when they kind of just flow through and you just take pictures. You get definitely weird hands and stuff like that where it's like, yeah, I'm not gonna keep any of those. And eyes are pushed too far. Like, I don't like this. Like, I don't like where there's this much white, so eyes are pushed too far. Mm. And one thing I caught in the beginning, but I wasn't paying attention to it towards the end, was how far she had her finger spread. Like this just draws my eye like crazy. I don't know if this would bother you guys, but this just, like, I'm not gonna keep this. Well, I might still keep it because I could crop somewhere. But yeah, if generative fill was better at hands, I would replace that hand. I don't like how spread and how stiff the fingers are, and I caught that in the beginning, but as time went on and I was realizing that I was running out of time fast, I was just like just shooting. Yeah, so in that whole sequence, she didn't look at the camera at all, and I just didn't catch it. Now, I generally don't necessarily love having the armpit face in the camera. I don't think it bothers me as much as it bothers some other people. I don't love it though, but I'll still work with an image that has it. But I don't particularly love it because it's just not. It's not. It's just I don't know. Like I mean, who you in real life, like you wouldn't really just want to look at somebody's armpit. So I just don't particularly like to have it in a photo. But I don't really worry about it too much. Mate, I was using my EOS R with the 7200 f4, and I was shooting at f4 most of these shots, or all of them. I was shooting at f4 on all of them. I didn't change it. Hey, you too, Josh. Appreciate you stopping by. Yeah. So these. Yeah, this was our first time working together, Kim. So that always adds a bit to it because you kind of learning each other's way of doing things and that sort of thing. Um, mm, man, I'm not keeping these, but I'm thinking if there's anything I could do with them. Like, nah. Nah. And really, the thing that I don't like about these is if, for me, like if you're gonna have arms up, it needs to make sense. Like I don't like when the arms are up and you could tell that they're just up for the sake of being up. Like this doesn't even look comfortable. Like not that it's ever really natural for you to just have your arms up, but you can make them interact with the body to where it looks intentional. This just I just don't like when they're just up and it just kind of looks like someone just said, put your arms up. It's like, well, why are they up? And so I won't keep any of these just because it just doesn't look intentional to me. And it's like, this one is close, but this arm is too extended to the point where it almost looks like it's straining. So if this would have been down a little bit more, although then it probably would have been covering the face a little bit, I probably would have been okay with it. But man, I'm gonna have half the images left by the time I get done. But I'm not keeping these because there isn't, like, I mean, this is, I mean, the pose is just no good, and the light is definitely underexposed. So not only does the pose not work, but then I'd have to bring up the exposure on the face, and it's just like, well, if I got to do that much, I'm trying to salvage a shot that shouldn't be salvaged, in my opinion. See, something like this, I would look to see if I would crop it that way, if it would be something that I would use, maybe. So I'll keep that one. Don't like how far the eyes are pushed over. Let's see if there's another one where it's not quite as pushed over. Yeah, I'll keep them. I don't love the eye. Man, I don't know. The eyes really bother me. Yeah, I just don't like that. Like, I will normally I would have had her rotate her right shoulder around, so then that way she could have brought the face around more, so then it would have put the eyes more towards the middle. I know, man. I might have to go back and just be like, oh, well, I gotta keep some of them. I mean, I'm kind of doing that already, because some of these I typically wouldn't keep, that I'm keeping just because I don't want to get rid of like an entire light setup, although I don't know that she would remember. But like all of these, the eyes aren't great, but I'll keep them. Now, see, pre-generative fill days, I would get rid of this just by the sake of she's pushed too far to the right, and I don't like that. Generative fill days, I mean, I could just expand this out easy. And I mean, of course, we've always had content aware fill, but content aware fill did not do great at backdrops. Now, this one, it probably would have did okay because there's not really any kind of light gradient on it. But when you have, like, if you have a gray backdrop and it's got light gradient where, you got, light in the center and then there's a gradient fall off towards the edge, it does terrible at trying to replicate that, especially if you try to expand it a lot. Generative fill does an amazing job. So pre-generative fill, I would have got rid of this. Maybe I'll keep it now. Let's see. Man, this backdrop, it's just a light gray Savage Seamless. I intentionally had her off of it enough to be able to have it darker. But it's just a light gray Savage Seamless. All right, so now we switch to kind of a clamshell lighting setup. So I had a, let's see, I know I had a 20-inch, a glow 20-inch deep para on the floor. I think I had, man, I can't remember if I had a strip. No, I did. I don't think I boomed anything. So it would have been a 48-inch deep para that I just had up here, camera left. So I think, yeah, so these are all, which this one's not terrible, but I know these were all test shots, so I'm not gonna keep them. So I was trying to fine tune the light. So here I was trying to see if she turned to the opposite directions, what the light would look like. Because at this point we didn't have a whole lot of time. So I was just like, okay, we're just gonna have to go through these quick. So I was trying to see what options she had in terms of how she could move. So when she was facing this way, it was too hot. So I was like, don't face that way. And then when she was facing the other way, bad light on the face. So I pretty much was like, yeah, you gotta stay facing me. Prop that elbow. Yeah, just wait till it goes to, I didn't do very many landscape orientation because my phone was standing upright. So when I went landscape orientation, I had to turn my head this way to be able to see it in that orientation. It was way too awkward. So yeah, so see where I messed up here is because, so the light was supposed to have been overhead. So the way that I had this planned out in my mind, the light was supposed to have been boomed overhead. So it would have been a true clamshell. Because I didn't have time, I just had it off to the left. Well, the problem is you can see that the top light, because she's facing me, she's not getting enough light on the face. So the chest is the hottest spot. The face is not getting enough light. I don't like that. I can fix it in post, but yeah, I definitely should have. Man, yeah, it would be tough to get what I want without booming it. Because if I would have brought this light around more, it wouldn't have had the same effect as the light as a clamshell. Because your clamshell, you really need that light to be in like a butterfly position. So if you don't have it in that and you just move it over, now you're going more like loop lighting. So you're not really gonna get the same effect. So it was kind of tough to get what I wanted without booming it. But I can still work with it though. I can still work with it. Yeah, I think I turned up the light. Well, no, she opened up more. So now she's facing it. So now it's a tad bit too hot, but the white balance wasn't great either because I didn't even realize I had it on auto white balance. So I typically, when I shoot flash, I normally set it to 5200. Man, I got 5 out of the 9, and it really was going to end up being 8 because the 9th one I needed to buy some curtains that I forgot to buy, but we definitely wouldn't have had time for that. So I think I ended up doing 5 out of the 9 because I just completely ran out of time. don't like the arms on that one or that one, so we're not keeping those. Yeah, this top light is definitely too hot, and of course because it's not boomed, I'm yeah, it's like, you know, you got the backdrop is bright here, not so much. Yeah, I mean, definitely was not quite what I was planning, but I generally don't love having the arms like this either, where they're symmetrical. Sometimes I'll do it intentional, but I wouldn't have done it on this one just because with the light being to the left, I would have known that this was going to be more in shadow. So with it being symmetrical, you just kind of pay attention to that more. So I typically wouldn't have done that, but I mean, you can see the difference between it being that way versus this way. Like that just looks very uncomfortable and unnatural. Whereas I still don't necessarily love it, but it just looks more natural. Yeah, let's see. I wasn't even nailing focus once once it went this way, because I couldn't even hold the camera right to save my life. uh yeah, it was very challenging. But I realized when I got to this point, I was like, man, I've been doing all portrait orientation. So I was like, man, let me rotate it. But yeah, it was a little difficult to do. Oh man, these are so hot. So I'm not keeping any of these because I don't, not only is the composition not good, the exposure is hot, which yeah, I can fix. Although I mean, this is like so hot that even bringing down like the highlights or the white point, man, it isn't going to look very organic because it's just so hot. Oh man, I lost my camera. Hang on. Oh man, I thought I put it in there. Hang on. I need to replace all of my batteries because they're all, well, minus my like newest ones, but most of them are most of them, man, they do not last very long. And we back. Yeah, I think that focus good. Nope, no third party. Canon only. And well, so I do have 2 third-party batteries that came with cameras that I bought, and I definitely have had issues in my cameras with them, so that kind of stopped me from wanting to use them. Yeah, these just aren't working. And see, the problem with not having that light boomed is that, so technically the light is not flat. There's obviously shadow here. Of course, it's almost borderline split lit, but obviously we got some shadow over here, so it's not flat. And I could accentuate that by deepening the shadows a little bit, but these are so hot that unless I convert them to black and white, which I could do, but I don't like salvaging pictures by just converting them to black and white. Like usually if something's gonna be black and white, I know that up front, and then I set my my camera to be monochrome, so that way I can make sure that there's enough contrast and all of that. I probably should at least keep one of these though. Yeah, I mean, I guess I could make them black and white. So maybe maybe I'll keep some of these. Yeah, maybe I'll keep some of them. Yeah, I guess I'll keep them all. Yeah, not that one though. Yeah, I'll keep some of them. Yeah, 'cause I mean that one as a black and white might not be terrible. Yeah. Yeah. I'll keep some of them for now. Yeah, see these, I think I was even struggling to get these in focus because I couldn't even hold the camera right. I would definitely be, see, so this is definitely where like the stuff in Lightroom is so easy, like just doing the background and then just being able to just kind of bring that down a little bit, just so that way it's not so hard, bringing down the highlights a little bit. I mean, that's a little bit too much, but yeah, I mean, man, Lightroom just makes it so easy these days. Like I remember the days of having to use a brush for everything, and it's like, man, it would take you forever because if you didn't do a good job, you know, you'd have spill that just didn't look good. But man, it's so easy now. And then all the other AI tools. Yeah, these aren't bad. I don't love like how flat the light is, especially because it wasn't what I was going for. So I don't hate the hand in that one. This one I don't love it, just because, man, it just, obviously it's bright right now, but man, it's just kind of coming in from everywhere. Oh, it's getting dark around here. You know, that's a good question, man. Man, you know, I prefer studio just because it's easier. Like it's nice not having to lug stuff around, but I don't like I don't love setting up stuff in studio to kind of add some depth and dimension to what you're doing, because it gets old just shooting on a backdrop, a plain backdrop. Even if you had a texture backdrop, like that's cool, but you still need some props and kind of set design to really make studio stuff more interesting. And I just don't be having any desire to do that whatsoever. So I like outdoors on location for that aspect, because you just got a ton of variety. But I just don't like hauling a bunch of stuff outdoors and setting it up, especially if I'm doing OCF. I just don't like setting it up outside. What is up? What is up? Man, can I say that name right? I'm thinking it's Hero, but I might be wrong, and if I am wrong, I apologize. Yeah, so these is where I was Zero. Okay. That probably would have been my second guess, maybe. So these, I was just like, man, I was struggling to just keep the composition good. So I ended up being like all over the place. Got it. Okay, so now I switched to I'm using a 48-inch deep pair, which I would never use on location because it's big and heavy, but I'll use it when I'm at the house because it's easy to use at the house. So I had this light feathered because I wanted to have this gradient here. So I wanted it to be more lit over here and the gradient here. So I had it feathered. So the light that's hitting her is the edge, the right edge of the modifier. So what I was doing here, I very much so remember, I wasn't sure if I loved how dark this shadow was. So I asked her to step up to see, because I knew if she stepped up, it wouldn't be as dark. And we both kind of, I actually liked this better, but I liked the light better when she was back. And I just didn't feel like moving the light. Well, I won't say I didn't feel like moving the light. I just didn't have time. Like, I was just like, we just got to shoot. So you split cut to see the differences in her face for blocking over fall off. I don't know that I understand the first question. The second question, it depends on what I'm trying to do. I do place my light intentionally to have the fall off that I'm looking for. So I had a YouTube video some time ago where I was talking about not always putting the light as close as possible. Like, you always hear, to get the softest light, move it as close as you can, which is great. But when you have that light super close, your light fall off is very fast. So sometimes that's not what you want. So I definitely play around with light fall off a lot. Blocking the light, I don't do that as often because I artistically don't typically need that type of light where I need to flag it in a way where it's kind of like a hard shadow, like an abrupt shadow. But I'll use it to block. I definitely flag the background a lot. Not so much the light falling on the model though. Oh, nah, I typically don't do that. Is that, I mean, maybe I would when I get to the point of actually like picking something to edit, but just calling through, no. Like I normally just breeze through and just keep what I think is I can work with and get rid of what I either can't work with or I don't think I would really do anything with it. Hey, what up, Marcus? Now, I definitely know that if I were to edit one of these, I would definitely bring down this exposure here and actually do this quite a bit in my pictures just to kind of balance it out. So you can see by like bringing that down a little bit, that makes that look a lot more natural than that right there. Like when it's like that, your eye is just drawn to that left side because it's the brightest part of the scene. So naturally your eye is drawn there, and that's definitely, well, I won't say that's definitely not what you want. That's not what I would want. So just by bringing that down, now it just balances it out a little bit more, and you kind of focus just more on the overall scene versus just that bright spot. Those are always things that I look for. And when I'm going through this process, I'm looking for those things as well. Like, would this be something that I could easily fix in post? If so, I'll still keep it. If not, I'll get rid of it. Sometimes I keep stuff because I'm just like, what kind of weird, funny meme type thing can I make with the pictures? So sometimes I keep stuff that I know I would never actually edit for real, but I keep it just to see. Got the shoes down there. And the reason why I didn't care about those is because I actually wasn't really trying to do full body. I was just kind of zooming in and out just to get different perspectives, but I wasn't really intending to be full body because she didn't even have on the shoes that she would have wore if we was going full. So I was like, I knew I would crop anyway, so I wasn't too worried about that. And I mean, even content aware Phil would handle that good, but generative AI would definitely handle that no problem. So I wasn't too pressed about it. Yeah, so when I drop the video on Tuesday, you'll kind of, I'm pretty sure a lot of these I have video of like the entire sequence, so it'll be in that video. And then I'm also going to touch on kind of some things that I would have done different, or some things that I typically would catch that I didn't catch on this shoot. And, it's like, I don't really make no excuses of the fact that I was moving fast, because like if you do this as a business, like there are a lot of times you will have to move fast. Like you cannot use moving fast or having a short amount of time as an excuse for not getting something right. Like that, you just can't, that can't be an excuse. But and this is something that I got to work on. Like when I do personal stuff versus business stuff, I have two completely different mindsets. Like when I do business stuff, I'm just in business mode, so it's a lot different than when I'm just at home and it's a personal project. But I do feel like to a degree, I really should have the same mentality for both, because you know, at the end of the day, I mean, I'm still trying to get good shots on creative stuff as well. So to not really get what I was getting because I wasn't thinking the way I should have been thinking, like this, is not really an excuse. So I definitely don't use that as an excuse, but I was for sure rushing. Stars, what up? Mm, that smile looks a little strained. Yeah, we get rid of it. Those eyes are definitely pushed too far to the right, but I'm gonna keep them still, because I do typically try to find a balance between, like, there's a lot of stuff that we as photographers will notice and will be like, yeah, I really don't like that, where like the average person, definitely your client or whoever you're shooting, really would not even pay attention to. So I do try to not get rid of every single thing that I'm just like, oh no, I don't like this, I don't like this, get rid of it, because some things sometimes you just got to be like, look, you know, it's like, you know, it's like you crop off an elbow or a foot or something like that. Like, you're gonna have a ton of photographers like, yeah, you know, just watch, don't crop. You're not gonna have no client, no model that's like, you know, I love this picture, but you cropped off my elbow. I would have loved it more if you would have had my elbow in there. They're not gonna say that. So if everything else in that image hits and the only thing is you crop the elbow, like, who cares? Like, who cares? Like, don't worry about other photographers talking about it. Like, your model or your subject, your client, they still gonna love it. So um I do use a mood board. Um through this whole part here, I basically had her moving the entire time. So I was having her run her fingers starting from her knee all the way up to about belly button area, and then back down very slow. And then the other arm, you know, she kind of was just flowing with that as well. So she wasn't necessarily posing, she more so was just moving. So when you have them do that, which I tend to have them do that a lot because it's more comfortable, you're gonna have images where like things don't fall in a good spot. So you typically are gonna shoot, and you're gonna get, you might shoot 20 shots and you'll have 2 or 3 that look good, but that's just the nature of having somebody move. It's the same way where you have blinks or you have, you know, facial expressions where you catch them where it just doesn't look good. It's the same thing. When you have that movement, you're gonna have stuff where it just doesn't look right, but you just keep shooting through that. So mm, yeah, I won't keep that one, because there's so many other ones that I don't like the palm being facing the camera like that, and there's so many other ones we don't need to keep those. So all of those can go. She kind of looked pregnant in this one because the arm is kind of connecting. So I would get rid of that one just for that alone. All right, so this was the last lighting setup. And so on this one ended up not being what it was supposed to be too, because it was supposed to have been a silhouette. So she was supposed to have been standing on my Apple box. It was supposed to have been a full body silhouette. So basically I was going to light the background with 2 strips, and then I was going to have her close enough to the background to where there will be enough light spill to be able to light her a little bit on the edges. And then I used the 48-inch behind me to add a little bit of fill. That did not go that way because I didn't bring the Apple box out. I think I did put the 48-inch behind me, but I did not have time to finesse this the way, because this was the last one. I think we had like 8 minutes before we hit the time where she had to bounce. So I didn't have time to really finesse the lights the way that I wanted. And then I was using the 70 to 200. It ended up technically being too long. So I would have had to do a lens change. That just wasn't going to happen. So these did not quite turn out the way that I wanted. And the problem for me is that, again, the light is a little flat, because since I couldn't get those 2 strip background lights the way that I wanted, I had to obviously turn up the power on my key to have something, because I didn't want it to be just like a silhouette to where like she was just completely black. Like it was supposed to have been, there was shadow detail, but it just wasn't shadow. But since I couldn't do that, I was like, well, let me just do something. But yeah, the light is just a little too flat, and I don't like that. So I think I was still trying to finesse these. Yeah, I actually think I like these the least, mainly because, again, the light is flat, because I mean I'm using a 48-inch modifier that's behind me. So I mean the light is right in front of her, so of course that's gonna make it flat. And then I don't like if I'm gonna do a white background, I would probably want to use beauty lighting if I was going to do a white background. I personally don't like when it's a super bright background, but then you have moody lighting on the subject. That's contrasting in not a good way to me. So if I'm going to have a bright background, I'm going to have a high key subject. So I typically would use beauty lighting, clamshell usually, if I'm going to do that. Or I'm going to silhouette. Those are the 2 things I'm going to do if I'm going to have a bright background like this. So this does not tick the box for me, because like in this shot here, you got this shadow detail over here, but then you got this really white, it isn't full white, but you got this bright backdrop. That just does not work for me. It doesn't work at all. So I don't think I really like any of these. I kind of went through them already, and I don't think I love any of them just because I just don't like the background. And I could try to do something with that, but yeah, I don't know. So I'm gonna get rid of all these because I don't think I like any of them with the hair. Well, maybe I'll keep that one and that one. I guess that one's okay. Don't like that one though. Zero, I would say that can be true. But because, so if you have a big light source, I had a 4-foot light source. Because I was so close to it, I'm going to have a minimal impact on the light that actually hits the subject. Because I was probably, I mean, if I had to guess, between 6 to 8 feet from her. So because I'm so close to the light source, it's no different than like when you want shadows, right? Like if you have something in front of the subject, like right up on them, you're going to have a much more defined shadow than if you have your hand in front of a light, right in front of the light, because you essentially are giving the light enough time to be able to do what it does, and you just don't see the shadow as much. So that kind of is like something that people ask, like when you stand in front of a modifier, like, aren't you going to cast a shadow? And you typically don't. If it's a big enough light source and you're really close to it and they're far enough away from it, you won't really get much of a shadow. I mean, it obviously will have an impact because, you know, you're standing in front of it. But if it's big enough, it's no different than if you've ever seen the lighting setup where someone will have a modifier behind the subject, and then they'll have a flag, a poster board that's like where they're at, and then the light wraps around and it still lights the subject. It's the same concept. Like you still get the light on your subject even though you have something in front of the light. So because I was so close to it, she was so far away, didn't really have that much of an impact. It just more so just the lighting was flat. I think here I moved it to the right just because I think I was trying to get something a little bit more dynamic. And so you could tell by shadow, I mean, obviously this arm is in shadow. She's casting, if it was straight on, there'd be light this way. And I mean, you could tell it's coming from the right at this point. Yeah, so you know, my biggest issue with these is that this looks like I just cut out the subject and put her on this background. And that's probably my biggest issue when you have a very bright background and your subject has moody lighting. It looks like you cut the subject out from another scene and just put them on a white background or whatever color. I just don't like it. So I typically wouldn't do it. Now, of course, I can bring that down so it's not as bright, to try to kind of balance it out a little bit. So I mean, there's definitely things I could do, but I don't like shooting to then be like, well, I'll get it to look good by editing it. Like, I mean, of course I'm going to edit, but I don't love having to salvage. I mean, sometimes it is what it is, but like a whole set like this, eh. Yeah, you know, sometimes I imagine in black and white it doesn't look as bad. And see, the thing too, so when you convert it to black and white, what you then could do, what you wouldn't typically do if it was color, is that now I can kind of bring up the exposure a little bit and kind of make it super bright, which you wouldn't do if you had it in color, because it wouldn't look good. But if you convert it to black and white, you can kind of blow out things a little bit more, and it's accepted because it's black and white. And then, you know, I can lower the black point and the white point to actually have some blacks and some whites, which is kind of what you need for it to truly be a good black and white. And so, you know, you can kind of push it a lot more when it's black and white than versus if it was in color. Like, that looks terrible, but you can get away with it in black and white because it's like, oh, this was a high key, you know, I intended for it to be, you know, yada. So, you know, some things you can kind of creatively do stuff with in post. And so since this entire set is this way, I'm obviously going to keep them, because otherwise this whole light setup, they all look like this. So I wouldn't keep any of them if I was going to get rid of them. So I'll keep them, but It's just not, this is not at all what this was supposed to have been. But it, you know, it kind of was what it was. Bryce, what it do, baby? So this was the same thing. I had her, you know, flowing through the pose. So that's why you're going to get stuff like this, because, you know, as she's moving things, you're going to get sometimes the shots, you're going to have things that are weird. This one as well, you know, kind of in between. I know, Bryce. There don't be nothing on Sundays, bro. Like there don't be nobody be dropping anything on Sundays for some reason, man. Like Sundays, because I pretty much only watch YouTube. Like I don't turn my TV on too much unless I'm watching YouTube on the TV. So yeah, Sundays be rough, man. And Sundays is my chill days too, and there don't be nothing, man. There don't be nothing. I'll be having to go in the trenches to find stuff on Sunday. Reverse fall off, light low to high versus high to low. That way the angle of your low light will add more separation to her head and shoulders. Reverse fall off, light low to high. I don't know that I understand what you're saying there. Low to high versus high to low. And with the angle of your light will add. Well, so Zero, you gotta keep in mind, I was using a 4-foot modifier. That's not really the size modifier you want to use if you want any kind of fall off, because I mean you're gonna have to feather that thing like crazy to be able to get fall off from a 4-foot modifier. Like you typically wouldn't use that size modifier if you wanted any kind of light fall off, because you're making it way harder than it needs to be. Bryce, I haven't had cable. Man, I don't think I had cable. Man, I probably haven't had cable in like 10 years. Yeah, so I typically don't even when I go. So even when I go, is this the JPEG? Yes, this is JPEG. Even when I crush the blacks, I still have to pump in some detail, because it always bothers me, and this is just me personally. Everybody can kind of do how they want, but it always bothers me, like when there's like something like this where there's a dress and you just can't see anything, so you just have like this black blob. Now, if I bring the shadows all the way up, I mean, you obviously can see like there's detail in the dress. So the fact that you can't see any of that here, it bothers me. So even if I was going black and white and I'm going to crush the blacks, right, just to really get them black, I'm still going to bring up that shadow detail so that you actually can see the detail of the dress. That is just a big pet peeve of mine, is that when you have like dark colors, there is detail there. So you can still have those colors or black, you can still have it be punchy, but bring those shadows up so that you can actually see this detail. Like there's just no reason for it to just be like this silhouette when there's detail there. And it's like with today's cameras, man, just bring that up a little bit so there's actually detail there, even though, you know, you can crush those blacks. So you got true black. You know, if I go here, like there's still true black down here, but you can still see that detail. Not as much right there. But and I mean, you also can play around with the highlights as well to kind of bring that up also. So yeah, that's a big pet peeve of mine. Like I'm always going to make sure there's some sort of shadow detail, especially in people's clothes, right? Because people pick what they wear for a reason. So I want you to be able to see the detail of what you have. So just a little tidbit. She was self-conscious about her stomach a little bit, and I was just like, you do realize we shooting 2 days after Thanksgiving. Like my stomach was out, you know what I'm saying? Like it's 2 days after one of the biggest eating days of the year. Like, don't even worry about it. I was like, that's an easy push in and post. No worries. Yeah, hey, man, YouTube gonna block you. Yeah, it made me think of Instagram. I don't even comment on Instagram anymore because, like, over the span of like 3 days, I had like 5 or 6 comments get automatically flagged as spam, and I literally was just responding to the post. And so I don't even, I'm nervous to even comment on my own stuff. Because if you get too many spam things like that, I mean, they'll shut your account down. So it's a shame because like I used to comment all the time on stuff on Instagram, but I don't comment on nothing anymore because it don't matter. Like I just got hit too many times, so I was like, screw it, I ain't gonna comment. It's like you want me to interact on your app, but then when I try to do that, you mark my stuff as spam. It's like, okay, well, I'm out. Of course you are. they let you out for the weekend, and then they be like, make sure you back here on Monday. Yeah, I feel like I probably would convert all of these to black and white. Just because I don't, yeah, I don't love the light. Now, also what's throwing me off is the white balance on these are not good. Because again, I had it in auto white balance. So it was balancing off of the ambient, which I had at this point, I had a light turned on because it was getting later in the day. So it's getting dark because it'd be full on dark by 4 o'clock here on the West Coast. So these are definitely a little bit warmer, but still, yeah, I probably would convert any of these to black and white, to be honest. And I probably, when I send the proof gallery, I probably will edit these to be black and white to set the expectation, because I don't think that I would want to edit these in color. So I probably would not even give her the option of even seeing what that looks like. If this would have been a colored backdrop, I probably wouldn't have hated it as much, even if it was as bright. Man, that don't sound good. If it was a colored backdrop now, if there was some color to it, I probably wouldn't mind it as much. Even with that exposure. Because it just would give it a little something, you know. So I mean, I maybe could play around with that and maybe try to add some color to it that could maybe make it, like if it was maybe like a tan or something. Yeah, could do something. And if we had that and then fixed the white balance, because the white balance is a tad too warm. Yeah, I maybe could do a little something. But see, my second problem would be is that, so typically I will I typically, when I shoot in black and white, it's intentional. I know that I'm going to edit it in black and white. But if there's a shot that I'm going to convert to a black and white, one of the main things that I'm going to look at, that I'm going to say I'm going to convert it to a black and white, is lack of color. And so if you look at this image, the only color is her, which is totally fine. Okay, I love me some melanin, nothing wrong with that. But because the light is so flat and there's just not a lot of color, this type of image just screams for a black and white conversion. Because there's the color, like especially if I take away the mask, there's such little color here that it's just like there's just no point in keeping this a color image. Like this is one where it's like it just makes sense to convert this to a black and white. Like it's gonna look 10 times better as a black and white than it will as color, because there's just no color there. So it's like, what are you trying to save? Minus the melanin, which again, I love me some melanin. But for these, I would almost convert all of them. Like that looks 10 times better in a black and white. How much space did I have from backdrop to my position? So from the back of the backdrop to where I stand, I have about 16 feet, 16 to 17 feet. Now, at this point, I had her, she was probably 5 or 6 feet off of the backdrop because I was lighting it with 2 strips. And I only, if I would have been able to do this the way I was intending to do it, I would have finessed her to be right in the exact position to get enough bounce from me lighting the background to be able to edge light her. So I would have positioned her good. But since I changed that, I moved her like 5 or 6 feet off. So then there was about 8 feet. I think for these, there was maybe like 8 feet, 8 or 9 feet between me and the subject. Put it, well, man, you know, mid, that actually probably would work pretty good, especially because there's not a ton of hair detail that I would have to worry about. That definitely could. I don't know if I'd put her at the beach, but definitely could work. I mean, it's worth trying these days. I mean, I'll definitely play around with generative fill just for the heck of it, just to see what it can do. Yeah, every now and then there was a soft one in there. Yeah, well, I don't know. I haven't used generative fill for like a complete background replacement, but I do wonder if it would, number one, if it would get the perspective right, and number two, if it would match the lighting, because that's key as well. Now, where it would be a little bit tougher is that because I did not rim light her at all, if it put anything where there was a light source behind her, it would look unnatural to not have any type of lighting from behind. So see, that's where like when you do composites like that, even like for generative fill, you really should know that you're going to do it, so that way you can light it to match whatever you're going to put behind them. But yeah, so see, a lot of these I'll pare down when I actually send the proof gallery, because there's just no reason to send this many shots of the same thing. Hey, Midge, you gonna see on the video on Tuesday. I was definitely spraying, bro. I was spraying, cause yeah, and y'all gonna be able to see how I had to be looking too. Like it was so awkward, man, that even like watching the video back, I was just like, man, it made me feel bad all over again, because I would like, you could see in the GoPro footage, she's looking right at me at the camera and I'm looking off this way. So she's looking at me here and I'm looking this way. I felt so rude just even watching the video. I mean, I told her that up front that that's what it was going to be because of the circumstances. But yeah, when I watched that GoPro footage back, I was like, man, it definitely made me feel bad all over again. Boom. So let's see what we're getting rid of. So we're getting rid of 304. So divide that by 2, 152. So of the 517, getting rid of 152. So that's not terrible. I usually don't take this many. I usually don't take this many pictures though. Yeah, so I've been live for an hour and 47 minutes. It normally would not take me anywhere close to that amount of time. Like I normally would have made it through those in like probably 15 minutes. So I normally go through pretty quick. And the reason why they were doubled up was because man, I feel like my focus ain't good. And it's getting darker by the day. The reason why they were doubled up is because I shoot RAW and JPEG. And so when I call both. So that way my stuff is synced up. So yeah, what up, Jay? What are the details for the so that's actually going to be coming out this week. That it was supposed to have came out last week, probably the week before that. It's coming out this week. That will come out this week. Oh man, Windows system. Hey. No, actually, I used to use Windows for a long time. I transitioned to a full-on Mac when man, it was when I was in LA. It was like, when did I get this Mac? 3 years ago. I had been Windows user my whole life. I was like anti-Mac, and then when my desktop that I built, when it crapped out, I was kind of like, do I build another computer or do I want mobility in a laptop? So I was like, I want mobility. Well, then the problem was I could not find a Windows machine that was solid to save my life. Like everything I was finding, like I'm reading the reviews, there just was like so much crap. And I'm just like, man, I already had a 13-inch MacBook. I had an iPhone, had an Apple Watch. So I was just like, man, it's time to make the transition. So I bought the M1 Mac and I have not looked back. I mean, there's still a few things that kind of annoy me that work better on the Windows machines, but just the ecosystem and just the way everything just works, man, yeah. And I mean, this M1, like it's never broken a sweat. Like no matter what I throw at it, like it's solid. Whether it's I'm editing videos, editing pictures, I could be in Photoshop with 100 layers open. Like the fans hardly ever turn on this thing. Mac products have been solid. Yeah, I mean, they definitely seem to not be as bulletproof as they once were, but I think that's kind of just a part of, I think the pandemic just kind of knocked everyone down a notch. Like even Canon, you know what I'm saying? Like Canon used to be like, when they would put products out, like they were very polished, very rock solid. Like their mirrorless cameras, like I've heard more problems that people have had with just like build quality and that sort of thing with these mirrorless cameras than I've ever heard of with like the DSLRs. Like their DSLRs were tanks. Like my 5D Mark IV, like that thing, like I could throw that at somebody and crack their skull, give them a concussion, and that camera would just keep on going. So yeah, I think times just have changed. Obviously, I think, you know, a lot of companies are just cutting corners on costs because, you know, inflation, everything's up. So to build things to the same level, it just would cost more. So yeah, so I do Mac. I'm still full on Adobe. I haven't switched to like Capture One because I need Adobe stuff. I use quite a few Adobe applications. So I have the entire Creative Cloud suite. So even if I wanted to get rid of Lightroom and go to Capture One, I still got to have the suite because there's other programs that I use outside of just Lightroom and Photoshop. So I still would have to do that. I'm still going to use Photoshop because I'm not really going to transition to like Affinity or whatever the other one is that they have now. So I definitely know Capture One is better for Canon mirrorless files. Like Adobe, even the profiles, they're not great. So I just kind of deal with that. But I just don't want to pay for yet another subscription for Capture One because it's like, I mean, if you buy it, it's $300, which is fine, but they upgrade it every year and you don't get free upgrades if you buy it. Their subscription, which I personally love subscriptions. I know a lot of people don't. I do. I love subscriptions because it's just easy and it's cheap for what it is, and I get the updates. But the Capture One subscription, it's like $30 a month. And I'm just like, I pay $60 a month for the entire Adobe Creative Suite. And that's like 20 different programs, 20 different applications. It's like, I'm not paying $30 just for Capture One. Like, that's crazy. So are you saying Affinity is good? Dang, that was a brutal example, man. I done miss where that fell. So yeah, that's my process. It actually took me longer than I thought. I was not expecting to be live for 2 hours because I still got to work on this video that's gonna drop on Tuesday. I returned to Lightroom after a year. Colors in Capture One are hit and miss, not all 100%. So yeah, I can only speak on the colors being better on the R5. I don't know about any other camera. I do know they are better with the R5, but I'm not going to switch. Like I've been using, like there's some Adobe products that I've used. Like I use Adobe Audition, which is their audio workstation application. Audition used to be a program called Cool Edit, and I've basically been using Audition since it was Cool Edit. And I like Adobe products. They are bloated. You know, I don't really deal with crashes too much. Like a lot of people don't use Premiere Pro because they're like, it crash all the time. I actually don't experience really any crashing with Premiere Pro. So I don't be knowing where people be coming from with that because I don't really have that problem. But I've been using Adobe stuff for so long, and I'm kind of a creature of habit. Like unless something comes along that just really makes it inconvenient for me, I'm just gonna stick with what I use. I just don't feel like changing and having to relearn stuff and all that. Like if it works, I'm gonna stick with it. Even if there's something that's better in some avenues, I still just stick with it. So I'll probably be Adobe for a while. So with that being said, I appreciate y'all tuning in. I figured I would just go live because I had to do this anyway. So I figured I would go live. The plan is to go live every Sunday. It won't always be calling through sessions. Sometimes it might be, me putting a video together or me just hanging out, talking. So I do plan to go live every Sunday. I'm putting it out there so that way y'all can hold me accountable because I'll say it and then I don't be doing it. I don't be doing it. And I don't got no excuse on Sundays because I don't be doing nothing on Sundays. So I definitely plan to go live. Tuesday, I'm gonna drop the video, the BTS of this, just so y'all can see that. And because since I prioritized it, I can't not put that video out. Like if I'm if I'm gonna sacrifice my photo shoot for to get BTS for YouTube, you best believe I'm gonna put that daggone video out. So yeah, that's gonna drop on Tuesday. So yeah, hopefully y'all had a good weekend. It's crazy that it's December already. The year's gonna be over before we know it. Out of curiosity, I know there's not a ton of people in here, but out of curiosity, is there anybody in here going? I know obviously Mig gonna be going to imaging, Bryce gonna be going to imaging. Is there anybody else in here that is planning to go to Imaging USA in Louisville next month, the end of January? Out of curiosity. And I've been hearing that Imaging 2025 is going to be in Texas somewhere. So my guess is it's probably going to be in Houston, if I had to guess, which is pretty cool. I know they definitely changed cities, but I think they only cycle through like 3 or 4 though. So, but I'm hearing that the Imaging 25 is going to be in Houston. So just curious if anybody else is going to be at Imaging, or if anybody's going to be coming here to Vegas for WPPI. You know, typically people choose one or the other, which is understandable. They are very different. So if you can make it to both, they are different. Like the vibe of Imaging is much smaller. It has more of like an intimate feel, so it's not as chaotic as WPPI. Like WPPI is just a madhouse. It's a complete madhouse. Like there's just so much going on, so many people. It's in Vegas, so that you have that. WPPI is crazy. Like you get no sleep for the entire time that you're at WPPI, because there's just stuff going on from sun up to sundown and past. Imaging is kind of the opposite. It's definitely a lot more intimate. It's not in the same city every time, so you have that element. And yeah, it's just kind of a slower pace, so you kind of get to enjoy the trade show more, and you get to enjoy the networking piece a little bit more, just because it's just not as chaotic. So people kind of move a little bit slower and are just kind of hanging out. So it's a good time. So if you can make it to both, you really should try to do both of them. Right, Bryce. And I mean, man, I feel like WPPI next year is just gonna be ridiculous. Like it's gonna be ridiculous, man. Like I already know. Like if everybody that's saying they gonna come actually come, which that's TBD. We'll see if that actually comes to fruition. But if everybody that's saying they gonna come actually comes, like man, yeah, it's gonna be crazy. Definitely gonna be crazy, but it should be a good time. I'm gonna be doing I was actually planning to do a longer form workshop at WPPI. I mean, it was gonna be like an in-depth lighting workshop, but I haven't fully decided if I'm actually going to do that, or if I'm just going to do kind of more of like a photo walk. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, hey Bryce, you know, I got to get back out on the court. Like I was doing good going out there, getting my shots in, and then man, I fell off. So I gotta get back out there, and I got to start doing some cardio, because I had leg day at the gym today, and man, I was struggling to breathe. So yeah, I'm gonna have to step up my cardio. But I will say for people that know what I'm talking about, if we got a bunch of people on that court and we ain't running full court, I'm not about to be playing no 21 with 20 people on half court. I ain't doing it. And I'm not about to be getting kneed in the ribs and having broken ribs and all that. Like, nah, if there's more than 10 people, we better be running full court with subs. Otherwise, I'm sitting it out, because it's impossible to play 21 when you got 15, 20 people out there on half court. Like that's just and then every possession you got people, you know, double teaming, triple teaming. Like that ain't even fun. And I'm an inside player, so you know my shooting game ain't that great. So it's like, man, if I got 3 people on me and I'm trying to go on the inside, like that just ain't gonna work. Like it just ain't gonna work. Yeah. So so anyway, that's that. Trade shows. Man, I'm sure starting next year, you know, the trio, me, Mid, and SJ will probably be going to some different cities. Summer next year, I'm definitely trying to hit a few cities because I'm gonna be on the East Coast for most of the summer. So yeah, I mean, man, 2024 should be interesting. It should be interesting. So with that being said, I appreciate you guys tuning in. I'm going to sign off so I can make me something to eat and get to doing what I got to do. So I appreciate y'all tuning in, and hopefully you tune in next Sunday for whatever it is I'm going live about. Don't know what it'll be, but I will be here. Don't even know what time. Probably maybe around this same time. I probably aim for like 1 o'clock my time. 1 o'clock my time, somewhere around there. That seems like a decent time for me to go live. We'll see. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. Have a great Sunday and a great week.